Hi, it's October 28th. My name is Reginald Angus Argue. I'm here with a retired member from Veterans Affairs, Sharel Fraser. Sharel, going to take you back to the late 90s when you first got involved with the commemoration programs in regards to the veterans. Can you talk about some things that you did with that program? And prior to you starting that, what kind of programs were in place here in BC to help remember the veterans that were lost and to thank the ones that served?
Okay, I'm sure there were other programs, but when I arrived, my experience was that first of all, the veterans organizations themselves were at odds with one another. They all had their own pride in certain things and their own ceremonies and certain things, but they didn't work together as a cohesive group. So that was the first thing I observed. And then the second thing I observed is that there really was no program other than Remembrance Day. And I thought, well, that's really not fair, because our men and women in uniform sacrificed their lives past and present, and there's all kinds of wonderful military milestones every year, anniversary dates, that should be commemorated to get the public more knowledgeable about the military, more thankful, and more expressing their gratitude, because, and I'll get to that a little bit later, the public really do want to show their gratitude. They didn't know how. So those three things combined, I said, well, we can create a program then and to garner all of those things together. So the first thing we did was we called all the veterans organizations together. And they were all distrustful of government, I would say, to start with. Distrustful about remembrance. That's very sacred, of course, and here's the government wanting to get involved in that. That was their ceremony. That was their day. What does the government want to be involved in this for? But we broke down those barriers, and we started to talk about getting children more involved. And it's not just about the ceremonies. And we talked about, you know, we have to look 5–10 years ahead when you're not going to be well enough to stand around the cenotaph. Who's going to be standing around the cenotaphs if we don't engage our children and our public now? So
you actually involved the youth within the school system into helping remember the veterans?
Yes, absolutely. So first we got the veterans to work together.
Yeah.
And then we started to say, okay, let's pick some milestones throughout the year, and let's plan something, a special event to bring children together, to bring veterans together, and to bring the public together. And so we started, the first thing was candlelight tributes. And so this is a funny story, because Penny McLaughlin, you must meet her one day. She scoured the earth, I'm telling you, the globe, to find the right candle for the candlelight tributes. They're available now. They were not 10 years ago. We got them from Holland. And they're little red candles, indoor-outdoor candles with a lid. And the symbolism of it is passing the torch of remembrance from one generation to another, like the famous poem, "To you from failing hands we throw the torch." That was our mantra for the candlelight tributes. So we would go to a cemetery, get a class of school children, get a group of veterans, get them involved in the ceremony, have a color party, children would march with the veterans. The ceremony would be a child receiving the candle from the veteran, placing it on a gravestone. And the symbolism of passing the torch of remembrance is complete. And now that child is all of a sudden involved in something. It means something now. It's not just standing there on November 11th, which is very sacred, but they get it now. You can see in their eyes, they get it. And once they get it, our job is done, because then they want to do more. They want to be involved in something else. So the candlelight tribute was the first one. We got everybody involved. And the veterans themselves saw, wow, look at what we're doing together. That was huge. So that's how it all started. And the BC Lions tribute was one of those. We call them signature BC events, because this only happened in British Columbia.
Yeah, that's November 5th is going to be the veteran tribute event that's going on at BC Place.
Salute to veterans and welcome home troops, because this year we're welcoming home our troops, of course. And yeah, that started out 13 years ago, and there was, again, disbelief. Every time we made a proposal, BC Lions said, I don't know, you know. Government, you want to put on a halftime show? Yes, we do. The veterans, oh, you want us to march on the field? Yes, we do. And now it's become the season favorite. The performance this year is going to be huge because, well, 2011 is a special year, a special milestone for people in their minds, and so the response we're getting this year is like overwhelming. So I'm sure it's going to be huge. We're going to have at least 600 or 700 people on that field.
You also have that famous singer coming out of Victoria too. I've seen some of her videos. And her voice is just amazing, just to hear it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing it within BC Place.
Yes, it's stunning. It's stunning. It'll bring tears to your eyes. And nothing's more gratifying for the veterans, even if they're not involved in anything else, to be able to march out on that field and have people stand and applaud. Young people, a young football crowd who you don't think normally would be engaged in military type things, but it's amazing. Almost all of them stay in their seats.
Well, we have to remember one thing about being a veteran myself is that, I don't like to glorify war, but I think it's extremely important to remember the ones that have been lost.
Yes.
Because they're the youth that, they left such a gigantic hole within their family, within their communities, and the possibilities were just immense, and we have to remember their memory, especially the parents that have lost their sons and daughters. It's just, there's nothing worse than having to bury your child before yourself.
Exactly.
And to myself, that's how I look at Remembrance Day. It's just, remembering the comrades that aren't standing next to us.
That's right.
And actually that's extremely important. You also, the veteran plate. You were telling me about that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That was wonderful. Well, when I mentioned we formed this veterans group, and at the time it was called the BC Veterans Commemoration Committee. And so Colonel Stacy, who was our chairman of that committee that we brought together, he and I went to meet Premier Gordon Campbell in his office, Canada Place, and we sat down with him and Rich Coleman, and we said, we would like to introduce a veterans license plate in British Columbia. Within 10 minutes, I'm serious, within 10 minutes, the Premier said, we're doing it. He was for as controversial as he was, he supported veterans from beginning to end. The veterans license plate that was created here, we created it through the committee, a veterans committee. It won an award, actually, in the International North American competition for specialty license plates. And we're very proud of the color. A lot of thought went into everything about it. The color blue was to represent the peacekeepers, the new generation of veterans. And so the poppy, of course, is on there as well. And the National War Memorial, the figurines, because, as you said, it's about the fallen, when we remember. And so when you look at all the other license plates in Canada, I think you will come to the conclusion that the BC one is quite stunning, beautiful, and meaningful. And, still to this day, we meet once a month to approve the applications of the Veterans Committee.
Do you have a website people can go look at?
It's not active. The committee, the association now is, they're very elderly, so it's not it's not as active as it was, 10 years ago when we were all involved together and things. So, yes, it's bcveterans.org.
And also, you were mentioning something to me right before we started, 11 years ago, taking you back 11 years ago, PTSD.
Yes.
And how the government at that time would not recognize PTSD.
That's right. And nor would the military men and women themselves either. They didn't want to have a stigma, and I'm sure you might experience that today with your comrades. There's a stigma to mental unwellness, whether it's perceived or not. People don't want to come forward and get help because they feel it might affect their career, their family life, anything. But the family breakdown happens if you don't take care of it. So what happened at that time when the government would not really recognize it, and nor would the military people themselves, is a brilliant professor, doctor at UBC, Dr. Marvin Westwood, came to the Legion and to Veterans Affairs and said, we can do something apart from military and apart from government, so there is no stigma. We're a university. We will coordinate, we will tailor-make a program that deals with we won't call it post-traumatic stress because that's not what people want to hear. We're going to call it trauma, relief, recovery, and repair. We started out with the Second World War veterans, and basically it's like group counseling. And I'm going to come to what you mentioned about the networking at the end, because that's the next phase. We started 10 years ago, but we started with the Second World War veterans. It was called Life Review at that time, just to give them resolve, to talk about what they did, how that changed their life decisions, and from the experience that we had with, so the partners at that time was Veterans Affairs, I was in charge at that time, the Legion, BC Yukon Command, and UBC, Dr. Westwood. So we piloted it with the Second World War veterans, and what we found is that it was amazing. The wives would phone us and say, these are 70, 80-year-old men now. I've never seen my husband so happy because relief, recovery, repair.
Yeah.
So we learned from the later life. Then we started to introduce younger veterans to the group counseling sessions. And we learned from every group, then we incorporated peer counseling. So it's all professionally driven, professionally facilitated by psychologists, but the peer, we've built in the peer support. The networking is the next phase we're going into. But given the politics of that topic, when I retired, the government withdrew their support from that program. I'm not saying one's related to the other, I'm just saying it's a timing thing. However, the Legion would not let it down. The Legion saw, when you attend one of those sessions, you see it is life-changing. You cannot believe, I'm sure, yes, you've described it a few moments ago, what happens when that, it is you see the posture of people improves, the outlook improves, the family breakdown is repaired. If you involve the families in the later part of the course. It's a critical health need of our men and women in uniform. And it's being treated like you get 10 visits to a psychiatrist. Well, that doesn't help, I'm sorry. It might help for certain people, but it really does not. You need the peer reaction. You need the peer interface, and you need the peer support afterwards. That's what heals this. So the Legion, that is why I had to go and work with the Legion, because they would not let it die. They saw the results. They said, we'll fund it. We will fund the whole thing. And it will be free of charge to our men and women in uniform. And it has been for the last 11 years. Now you mentioned, though, that you see the need for a networking amongst younger veterans.
Yes, even where, we're talking peacekeepers,
right.
And the people that were over in Bosnia.
Yes, absolutely.
Golan Heights, and ran like when I was over in even Afghanistan.
Yes.
So we need to, the younger veterans, they're in their 40s and younger, need to get together, and older brother, older sister, younger sister. We need to work amongst each other and just start, because I'm finding that a lot of a lot of us carry a tremendous, we feel like we're determined to give me burden in our life, and to overcome it is extremely hard. I mean, I myself, I used video, and I'm using radio in the past to talk to people, and I see so many of my younger brothers and older brothers and younger sisters and older sisters. I'm seeing so many of them suffer, and I'm just trying to say to them, look, if we start talking amongst ourselves, then we can provide some sort of cure to allow the pain to get out.
Exactly, exactly. And so as we move forward with the program with UBC, right now we've been focusing on the treatment program side of the house, but we want to expand it into this social networking so that we will have eventually, not we, but it'll be controlled by UBC, but we will be the funder, the Legion will be the funder. So that eventually we have a website where people can come and do that self-assessment of, where are you at in your healing and those kind of things. Just a blog, just just to get it out, because you know what happens, of course, late at night, early in the morning, that's when you can't see. And so that's on the horizon of where we're going with. We're not giving up on it. We're going to expand this program. And
so where are people going to go on the internet to find out more information on this? Like once you start expanding the program, where can people go see the highlights so that you know, other veterans are listening right now, and even American veterans, if they want to start contributing too?
Interesting that you bring up, I'll answer your question in a moment, interesting you bring up American veterans. Our model, the model that Dr. Westwood created with the Legion here in British Columbia, is he goes and speaks to the American universities often, and the American military often. And our model is being examined in that context. And we are hoping to move those markers along. Of course, it's all a matter of funding, right? But we're getting there. We'll get there. We'll get there. But right now, if you go to the, if you Google Veterans Transition Program, UBC, you'll get two websites. UBC website will come up with that program on it, and the Legion website will come up with that program, which has the information about it. And yeah, there's exciting things that are planned for the future.
Well, the last thing I'd like you to do is just the medal that you're wearing right there. If you could quickly tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. This is the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal, which was awarded to, I think there were 44,000 minted for Canadians, and they were awarded to people who did exceptional things in the community. I received mine, very honored to receive mine, because of my work with veterans and youth, bringing intergenerational connection amongst the two in all topics, not just remembrance, but many, many other topics. But it's basically from my work with veterans and youth.
Well, I must say in closing that, you know, the youth today, the program, the videos that they did to commemorate the veterans and everything was just amazing here at City Hall in Vancouver. Thank you so much for everything you've done there, Sharel.
No, I thank you for your service.